Wrote this song while crewing Aaron on a 100-mile foot race through the trails in the rain and mud. How about that? Miles to go. 100 miles to go. Don't ask me why I do it. I don't know. Miles by foot. 100 miles by foot. Don't ask me why I do it. I can't stay put. Rain is a coming, can't give a fit. Rain is a coming, can't give a fit. Don't ask me why I do it, but I am legit.
Welcome to another episode of MR Runningpains podcast. Today, I have with me Anne Riddle. Anne is simply just an amazing woman who has done just mind-blowing things in running. She probably is lesser known to those that haven't been into the sport for long, just because she did most of her big adventures in the early 2000s, late 90s. But she did some amazing things, and obviously we can learn so much from people like Anne. So I'm excited to present to you our conversation, and hope you enjoy. And I'll catch up with you guys at the end of the episode. All right. As I said in the introduction, I'm welcoming to the show one of my favorite people and runners who I've definitely looked up to in my career, Anne Riddle. Anne, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Aaron. Thanks for having me here.
Awesome. I was very excited to have this conversation. Just so we're in a timeline. Anne and I are recording on December 11th, in case we say anything that that changes by the time this podcast launches, just so everybody has a time frame. Anne, I left the big introduction up to you. So tell us, about yourself, where you're at, and what you're doing, that kind of stuff, and then we'll get into all the other fun stuff in a bit.
Okay. Well, goodness, I've been a runner since I was 14 years old, and we'll get into, I guess, the ups and downs of my career. Right now in my running, I am kind of coming back from injury. The last few years have been really up and down with back injuries. So right now I'm just in this phase of running for stress relief and running as a chance to get out of the house with COVID because there's not much else to do. And just trying to get fit again and see whether there are any or what kind of adventures are in my future running wise. And working remotely, as a lot of us are. And that's about it for me from here. Yeah.
So starting at 14, so high school age, yeah? Started in high school. All right. What did high school running look like for you?
Well, so I started in earlier days, I was a soccer player. So going into high school, I just kind of assumed I would be on the soccer team. And my parents sat me down like the summer before ninth grade and said, here's the thing, like, you're not really very good at soccer and you probably won't make the team, but you're one of the fastest people on the field. And it seems like you can just go and go. Why don't you try out for the cross country team? And I said, well, what's cross country? And they told me, running across fields and up and down hills and through the grass. And the best thing was there were no cuts. So anybody who went out for the team made the team. So that was my intro. And I knew the races were 3 miles long. And at the time, our driveway was a mile long. We lived on a dirt road. And so that summer, I practiced every day until I could run to the end of the driveway and back without stopping. So I figured that prepared me for high school cross country. And I think I had, what a lot of people would consider a pretty typical high school cross country and track career. I was kind of a big fish in a little pond in my area. We were in a small school in a small district. So I went to districts and regionals and states every year and that kind of thing, ran cross and the 1600 and 3200 on the track. And then went to college. I was a walk-on at William and Mary and ran there for 3 years, didn't run my final year. So I'd say I experienced moderate success as a runner early on, and I knew that I loved it, and I knew that I kind of had some kind of gift. I mean, I never harbored any illusions of being a professional runner or going to the Olympics or anything like that, but I knew that I was better than average.
Sure.
Yeah.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Northern Virginia, an area that was very rural at the time, Loudoun County, lots of dirt roads to run on, back roads. It's become more of a suburb of DC now.
Right. Was it like a very positive experience, running in high school? Did you, have?
It was great. Yeah. I mean, we moved to a new school when I was in ninth grade. And I think I was at that place in life where you're kind of at a crossroads, and I could have gone in a couple different directions. And I think that finding cross country and finding the camaraderie of the team there, we didn't have much of a women's team when I was there, and it really built during my time. And both the men and the women just became some of my best friends in high school. That was my cohort, and so it really. It was just a place to belong and a place to kind of put my adolescent energy. If left unchanneled, can go in a lot of different directions.
Nice. Yeah. You've always come across as well-spoken and very, very kind to everyone. Do you think you developed some identity in high school? Through, the socialization that you found in running, or how do you think that kind of helped shape you or not shape you?
Yeah, I think, gosh, that's interesting. I think I was one of the top runners on the team from like mid freshman year on. So I think that did lead me to take kind of a leadership and sort of a mentorship role.
Right.
by my senior year in high school, we were really a pretty good team, and we're going to states and all that. And so we attracted a lot of non-runners and non-athletes to the team. We were kind of this motley crew of kids that maybe never saw themselves as athletic. And so it was really fun to bring them on and help them realize that they could be athletes. And so, yeah, I guess I did. Looking back, I hadn't really thought of it this way, but I think I did develop a lot of compassion and support, and just knowing how to kind of cheer people on and bring out their best selves.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in, collegiate athletics. You said that you decided not to run your final year. If you don't mind, what was involved in that decision?
I think, well, I will say in some ways it's a decision I regret, but in other ways I think it was necessary. I think I was real burnt out by that point. I think as much as I loved running, for a lot of my high school and my college years, it really felt like I was running for other people, maybe more than myself. And just started experiencing a lot of anxiety before meets. Terrible, crippling anxiety where I didn't just not want to race, but I didn't even want to get out of bed. I wasn't even sure I wanted to live the morning of races. It was that bad. And I just started thinking, this isn't fun. I'm not enjoying it. I started getting interested in other things, meeting people who weren't on the team, and just felt like I needed to go in a different direction. And it was interesting. After my junior year, I figured I would never race again. I knew I would always run. And even when I stopped running on the team, I still ran, my 5 miles a day or whatever. But it was several years, that was probably 1987. And I don't think I ran another race till maybe 93. So there are a lot of years where I just didn't want anything to do with the whole competitive piece. I think I needed to just detox from all of that and figure out what running meant to me personally, away from the coach and the dad and all of that other stuff.
So do you feel like there was external pressure, or a mixture of external and internal pressure that, you kind of placed on yourself that caused that anxiety?
I think it was a combination. But I will say, and I think this might be true for other people at that age, I felt like my relationship with my dad revolved a lot on my success or failure as a runner. And so, really, the races went from feeling proud about how I had done to wondering how he would respond to my result. And so I think that was where a lot of the pressure came. But I think also I'm a type 1 person. I'm very competitive with myself. I'm hard on myself. I always want to do the best I can. I do what we shouldn't do, but what so many of us do, which is compare ourselves to others. So I think there was just a mixture of all of that, putting a lot of pressure on every single race.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't mind, as a mom yourself, when Emma was growing up, did you try to not do the same and be as involved in that regard to her athletics?
Well, there weren't really that many athletics to speak of. I was very conscious of not forcing her to do anything she didn't want to do. However, I was the Girls on the Run coach for her elementary school. So since that's what I was doing after school 2 days a week, she pretty much had to do it with me. So she did Girls on the Run for 4 years, I guess, and then ran track maybe 1 year in middle school, and ran maybe 1 week of cross country at Asheville High. And it was just clear it was not for her. As excited as I was when we did run the Girls on the Run 5Ks together, and I saw this huge potential, I had just always been really cognizant of just wanting her to have a passion. And I didn't care whether it was running, another sport, music, art, writing, theater, whatever her passion was going to be. I wanted to support that.
Yeah. It's,
So,
I'm the same, when I see Keegan, it's like, obviously he has potential, but I never want to press it on him. And I always let him know, it's okay if like you decide you don't want to, like, because he gets really anxious too especially before track meets. I'm thinking it's more, because he's out in front of a whole crowd. Dad's his coach. So like, I don't want him to feel that pressure as well, but he loves cross country, and he loves trail running. So, I don't want to, like you said, I want him to pursue his passion, which he loves basketball. So, I want him to be able to try out for basketball and enjoy that. So I agree with you. It's, letting them find their own path. And it's hard when your parents are like us, like that, that's what we did. So, but I just don't want him to have that external pressure as well. I agree with you.
And I think, that's sort of what happened when Emma went out for cross country at Asheville High. The very first day, the coach, who is someone I know, texted me and was so psyched that Ann Riddle's daughter was coming to be on the team. And I think in some ways, I think Emma wouldn't say it, but I think, she's kind of proud of that. But in the other, she's not me. She doesn't have the interest or the drive that I have in that area. Yeah. So I think it maybe did feel like a lot of pressure for her.
Yeah. When you were in, let's say, high school, were you motivated enough that if you guys didn't have practice, you would just go out for a run anyway? Yeah.
And I would even, I remember actually one specific day in high school. It was my senior year, and this girl was my big rival for in the mile or 2 mile or something. And there was an awful weather day, thunderstorms, hail, and our practice was canceled. And I remember going home and going for a run and thinking, I bet Kim Sullivan's out there training right now. I'm going to go out there and train right now. And then we had the meet that weekend, and it turned out she had been sick all week and hadn't run at all. But, I used that as motivation. So I was out there, and, in not always a very directed way. Like I remember a couple times having a disappointing race on a Saturday and going out to the track, and my dad timing me on intervals on Sunday, which was just didn't make any sense training wise, was not what I needed, but just this, okay, we got no taking the day off, no resting, no recovery day. Let's go back out at it. So.
And I'm sorry if I missed this. Were your parents runners?
They weren't. They became runners when I was in high school, but they weren't beforehand.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Right on. Very good. So fast forward a little bit. You've taken a little hiatus from racing, you said, and then you got back into it. What regained that interest in racing?
I decided to run a marathon, and I'm not really sure why, but it just, I guess maybe I can only speak for myself, but I think as a runner, maybe the ultimate goal is to eventually run a marathon. Although nowadays, probably the ultimate goal is to run like a 50 miler or 100 miler. But back then it was like, if you ran a marathon, you were a real runner. So I just decided to run a marathon. And back then, there was no internet, there were no training guides. And so I went to the library and checked out a book on how to run a marathon and had a little 10 or 12 week plan. And I followed it to the T and did my marathon. And I think that sort of reignited things for me.
Nice. Which marathon was that?
It was, I don't even know if they have it anymore. It was the Piedmont Triad Marathon in Greensboro.
Okay. Right on. And so how'd that go? Did you? It
was great. I think I ran 3:04 or something, which was, pretty good. So I was pretty psyched about that. And, of course, the next day, more sore than I'd ever been in my entire life. Couldn't walk downstairs or anything like that. But it kind of reminded me gosh, if I really work at this, maybe I could achieve some things.
And so, like, that spark is now lit. So,
Mhm.
like you said, you've kind of got this idea in your head now, like, maybe I can do something else. So,
Mhm.
where did that take you from there?
I started working with the track coach at the time at UNCA, Stan Rosenthal. And we, through some women in the Asheville Track Club, we started a little women's track workout group.
Nice.
And so we met once a week and did track workouts. And so started doing, that was the first time in, 8 years I'd done any speed work. So started doing that, just started entering some local 5Ks, 10Ks, winning here and there, winning a little bit of money here and there. And so Stan thought I had potential in the marathon. So for a while, the Olympic trials was my goal. I didn't quite get there. And sort of in between training hard for marathons, I ran a couple good ones and then got injured and then somehow decided to do an ultra. And that was like just as trail running was really kind of picking up steam too. I mean, there were only a couple trail races in all of North Carolina at that time. So it's sort of, I did this trail ultra, got that bug, started running more trails, and then that it sort of took off from there.
All right. So where did the marathon end up? Like, where did you end up having, or what was your PR? Let's say
254.
254. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so at the time, the women's trials were the qualifier was 250,
Yeah.
and so and 250. I mean, I only ran 4 marathons, I think, during that time, and I was taking off, pretty substantial time. So I think probably, I mean, who knows? We all can do the coulda, woulda, shoulda, but
Yeah,
I
sure.
think had I not changed my focus to trails and ultras, and if I had stuck with the marathon for a couple more years, I think I probably could have gotten that PR down. And
So we're talking, are we talking late, like 90s now, where you got into the trail running?
yeah, that would have been, well, my first, actually, I can remember it from by thinking about Emma, because my first trail ultra was when I didn't realize it, but was pregnant with her, which was 99.
Okay.
I
Which
think
was,
I had done a couple. So the races I did were the Uwari trail races, and back then there was an 8 mile, a 20 mile, and a 40 mile. So probably in '97 I ran the 8 mile. '98 went back and ran the 20 mile, and by '99 I was ready for the 40 mile.
nice.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
You are still around and still selling out in 3 seconds. So
yeah,
that's great.
It was a different scene back then, for sure.
Yeah. So, like, that's, around the time I started looking at trail racing, not necessarily ultras myself, but, what did the ultra scene look like back then? Obviously we're still not having a lot of internet access, that, like, how did you go about, finding races? What was around, did you have to travel a lot? What did it look like?
Well, back then, the best source for finding out about races was Running Journal, which I don't even know if that publication is around anymore.
Yeah, they
But,
stopped that.
I would, you would get that every month and look at all the races, the 5Ks all the way up to ultras. And I think the way they had it broken down was like they had all the regular races by state, and then at the very back they had like a
The
little
ultras.
teeny column about like trail and ultras.
Yes.
And so I just look on there and find out what was there. There were, I'm thinking about, and of course I was only really concentrating on the Southeast. So I'm sure there's more going on out West. I mean, of course there were things like there's Western and Leadville and, those kinds of things had been going on for quite some time.
Sure.
But here there was really, there was Uwari, and then there was Umstead. There were David Horton's races up in Virginia, JFK, obviously. So I did a lot of just, here in the Southeast kinds of things.
Right on. Right on. So, um, what would you say was probably your favorite out of the trail races? What was your go-to?
Well, I mean, I think my favorite is Shut In, right here in Asheville. It's such a classic. And I guess that was probably one of my first trail races too, actually. I probably did that for the first time, maybe in 96, 97, somewhere in there.
Okay.
And I've gone on I've done it 7 times total. And it's just, it's just a classic because when you live here in Western North Carolina, everybody does it. And it's just like a big family reunion every year. And of course that's changed too. I mean, back in the day, there weren't lotteries and you didn't have to like sign up for a race 6 months in advance and, all of that. It was kind of like the weekend before or a couple weeks before, find out about something and send your little check in your self-addressed stamped envelope and register for it.
They were at $1 jillion and yes.
Yeah.
What, speaking of shut-in, what did, how different was it like when you did it your first time to like what we're seeing? I mean, obviously not this year, but in a normal year, like, what were the aid stations like, or were there aid stations like, what did that all look like?
I mean, that's one thing I don't think has changed a whole lot. And I will say I haven't run shut in a few years, maybe, could be 6 or 7 years by now. So I don't know what it's like currently, but I think it's always been just like kind of a roaming sort of party atmosphere with the aid station. You'd have your crew driving from rest stop to rest stop and seeing you. And, certainly back then when I first started, you didn't have all your gels and your fancy drinks and all that. I remember, my husband handing me a banana and me getting kind of frustrated that it wasn't peeled. And, you didn't care. I didn't even have, and I don't even know if I would carry water if I did shut in now, but like you didn't even have like ultimate directions handhelds and things like that back then, at least maybe I was just behind the times, but that was also when I owned Just Running and we didn't sell a lot of that stuff. People didn't wear hydration systems or camelbacks. Those were for mountain bikers, not for runners. So all of that has changed a whole lot.
Right. So like you did your RE40. So what did that look like so far as like, you don't have the handhelds, you don't have, so what did you guys do instead? Just depend on the aid stations?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Gotcha. And you said there wasn't like the gels and stuff. So it was more like, like you said, bananas and,
handful of M&Ms and boiled potatoes and that kind of thing.
All the things that right now we're wondering how do we get those out on the aid stations without having people handle
exactly.
It's crazy. So you've got the as you said, you got into the trail and ultra running. Let's talk about some of the things that you did in trail and ultra running. So what's the furthest that you did for an ultra?
The furthest I did, and it was actually not on trails, on roads. Towards the very end of my ultra career, I did 24-hour races. And I think this is where it gets foggy. I think my PR was somewhere around like 138, 140 miles, something like that.
Yeah. Did they have the U.S. and world teams when you were doing the 24-hour?
Yeah. I was on the U.S. team 1 year for the 24-hour. I believe that was 2013. No. Yeah, somewhere in there. And what happened, I would have continued with that, but that was when my back, I'd had a couple, that was right before my second back surgery, and I just decided I needed to kind of chill out a little bit. But yeah, so I did go to the Worlds in the 24 hours, and that was great. It was a lot of fun. It was in Poland, and
that's super cool. Yeah. Did you do any of the other trail teams? Did you any of the other race distances like 100K or anything?
They didn't really have. So they had. I did a lot of. I was on the 100K road team 6 times. They didn't have the trail ones at that point. They were just starting it. They had a like a trial 50-mile World Trail Championships at Sunmart in Texas one year, and I did that. But they didn't really. I think they were just starting to form. I mean, they had the trail teams that did the uphill race one year and the downhill the next,
Right.
but they didn't have ultra length national teams at that point.
Yep. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right on. Did you ever get to do just an outright 100-miler?
I did two. I did Vermont and I did Western States. And I'd say, when I think back over my running career, if there are two pieces of unfinished business, one would be I wish I could go back and get that marathon time a little lower, but obviously that ship has sailed. But I don't feel like I ever really dialed in the 100-mile race. And I would love to be able to go do another one of those. I don't know if that's in my future or not. But when I did both Western and Vermont, I was still doing a lot of road ultras, and I was doing a lot of 50K and 50-mile trail ultras, but I didn't have the training dialed in for a 100-mile trail race. And I think I would do it a lot differently now.
And what do you think you would do differently so far as training anything? Like what do you think? Some of the things?
So when I was doing training for a lot of 50 miles and 100Ks, I pretty much did marathon training with just a little more volume. I was doing track workouts once a week, tempo runs once a week, a long run once a week. And the only difference was that my long runs were longer and I was doing more two-a-days. And that worked really well for 100Ks. But when it came to the 100-mile, I think for racing up to maybe 8 hours, that worked really well. But when it came to racing for 16, 18, 20 hours, I think I would have, if I were going to do it now, I would put a lot more time on my feet, incorporate a lot more hiking in my running. And that would probably be the main thing, going out instead of, I think I was doing maybe 30, 35-mile trail runs on the weekends, being out there for maybe a maximum of 5 hours or something. I think I would go out and, do some 8, 9-mile or hour training runs if I was going to do another 100.
Sure. How did Western go for you?
Not great. I mean, I was in the top 10, so I know that's something to be proud of, and not a lot of people can do that. But I think my time was like 21 something. I think probably Nikki Kimball won it that year, maybe in 19 something, maybe 18. I mean, she was she was gone home and showered and slept for a couple hours by the time I was running around that track for the final stretch. And so like looking back, I can think, gosh, top 10 at Western is like a pretty big accomplishment. But at the time, that was when they were just starting to do a lot more blogs and like some of the websites were doing predictions and giving people odds, and I was in the mix, and they were, I don't remember what the odds were, but there was some talk that maybe I had the potential to win or at least to podium. And so I think going into it with that mindset and then coming in ninth was really disappointing. But going in with a different mindset, coming in ninth was pretty good accomplishment.
Yeah. If we could talk about Western for a second, because, I would say that it's on everybody's bucket list. If you do 100-milers, typically Western States is on your bucket list. If you could just give some advice about, training for Western States, what are some things that you might say are, some key components to training and being prepared for Western States?
Well, the downhill is huge. One of the things that really killed me there was that my quads were just shot by the second half. You just don't realize how much descending you're going to be doing going into the canyons and then coming back out. So that's a big one. Managing the heat and hydration. And I don't even think it was a particularly hot year that I did it. I mean, it was definitely hot. It definitely got into, maybe 100 degrees in the canyon. So that's pretty darn warm, but it wasn't like one of the record hot years that you hear about. So just really being able to manage fluids and figuring out, dialing in your eating, because that's always been a big challenge for me in almost any distance over about 50K. I just get to a point where I don't want anything but unsweet tea and water. I just don't want I don't take in any calories. And, obviously that's not good energy management. So really dialing in, what can you stomach in those final hours, and especially with heat, practicing that and getting that figured out.
Absolutely.
I remember coming to Devil's Thumb, which was a really, really hot area and hot time of day. And they had these popsicles that just looked so appealing. I think I sucked down 2 real fast. And then descending from there, got the worst side stitch and cramps. And it's why would I suck down a couple of popsicles and then scream down a hill? It just, too much sugar, too much stuff sloshing around. So those kind of rookie mistakes, really, when you think about it.
I gotcha. Were there any races that you were like, man, I wish I had been able to do that one?
I think, I don't know that any particular ones come to mind. I mean, there's a ton I would love to do. A lot of the ones out west that are just so beautiful and scenic, hard rock, that kind of thing. I don't know if I was even cut out for that, even in my prime, but something like that would have been really fun to do. In terms of a sub ultra, I never did Boston, even though I qualified for it plenty of times. And I did, after my back had sort of curtailed my ultra running, I did do another couple marathons after that, and had decided I was going to do Boston just because everybody says, you got to do Boston, you got to do Boston. For so many years, I thought, what's Boston? I've gone to Worlds, I've done Western, who needs Boston? But I decided to do it and got injured just a few weeks out and didn't get to race it, but went ahead up there just because I already had all my accommodations. And it was amazing. I mean, it was magical, just the energy there, how the whole city turns out. So I wish I had done that, or maybe will again at some point. That's probably, one that they always say should be on every runner's bucket list. And I kind of blew that off, and I regret it a little bit now.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I guess, the other thing, and now that I think about bucket list ones, I still would kind of like to do Hellgate up in Virginia, David Horton's race, which I think is this week, and maybe starting tonight, actually.
It's tonight. Yep.
Yeah. So that's another one that I think would be really special.
Yeah. Yep. No, absolutely. Those sound like the usuals. As I've said, I think I'm number 17 on the wait list for Hard Rock right now.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so I'm getting up there. I haven't looked to see if I've moved at all. I doubt it, but so I'm excited for that. And God knows I think I'm on year 6 for the Western States with lottery. So maybe at some point. But you also you did some really fun projects and FKTs. Let's get into that topic. Let's talk about, let's start with what was your favorite FKT or project that you did?
Well, it's interesting because when you think about FKTs, when you're in the middle of them, they may be your least favorite thing in the world, but then after you've done them, they're really fun in hindsight. Yeah. The Tour de Virginia, which was a run on the AT across the state of Virginia, I think it was, let's see, I wrote down, it was, how many miles was it?
Quite a bit.
510 miles, I think, and we did it in 14 days, 13 days, something like that, and 169 hours, it looks like. And that was really fun. It was fun because I did it with 5 of us started and 3 of us finished, and it was a team effort, but the 2 guys were so far ahead of me by the end. I didn't really see them except at the campsite each night. But we had a crew that drove our gear from site to site, and we ran maybe anywhere between like 30 and 45 miles a day on the AT. And it was there's just something. I've never done a through hike, but it kind of gave me a glimpse of what that would be like, where you're just in this kind of extended period where you don't have to think of anything except getting from point A to point B, and managing your energy, managing your blisters, managing your food and fluid intake. And there's just something really special about being able to just take a step away from your life and do that. So that was a really special one. Plus, having grown up in Virginia, it was cool. And finishing up in Harpers Ferry, where I had spent a lot of time as a kid.
Cool. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Would that be the one you're also most proud of, or would you say there's another?
Yeah, I mean, no, as far as I know, nobody else has done that. So I don't really have times to compare it to. I mean, I have a hunch that another woman could run it way faster than I did. But I'm proud that I persevered, because I had some really significant. I fell so many times in that run, and my knees were so banged up and swollen I could barely bend them by the end, and thought a couple times about dropping. So I was really proud that I persevered through that. I think the SB6K was also, I'm pretty proud of that one.
Talk about that.
Well, that was covering all the peaks above 6,000 feet here in North Carolina. There were 40 of them, and we did it in we did it in 6.5 days, covered 261 miles. And I did it with 2 other women, and we did do it as a team effort. We stayed together the entire time, which had its merits and its disadvantages. It's good when you're struggling and you've got 2 people there with you who are having better days, who can kind of pull you along, but it's hard when you're having a good day and your teammates aren't having as much of a good day, and you can't really just take off and do what you feel like doing. But it was fun because I got to do a lot of recon and spent a lot of time out in the mountains in areas that I haven't really spent a lot of time in. So especially out in the Smokies. And part of the challenge with the SB6K was it was not pure running. It was a lot of orienteering and bushwhacking and trying to find summits. And so that was a different kind of skill set.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows, what does SB6K stand for?
South Beyond 6,000.
6,000. And that included peaks in North Carolina and Tennessee, right?
Well, the only one in Tennessee, I think, was Klingman's, which I think might be kind of on the border, maybe.
Right. It's in Tennessee. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we started at Klingman's, did all the peaks in the Smokies, and then went out to the Plot Balsams, then the Great Balsams, where Black Balsam and Shining Rock and all that are, and then across the mountains to sea over to Mount Mitchell and all the ones over in that area, and then over to the Rhones.
And so you ran in between.
Yeah.
All these areas.
You would running loosely defined. I'd say
Sure.
There's a fair amount of shuffling and hiking, but yeah, we went from peak to peak on foot.
What was the total distance?
It ended up being, about 260 miles.
It's incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I think it's just really cool that you guys were doing these projects and, just coming up with some different things to do. And it was before all of this, hubbub about FKTs.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think stirred that interest? Just to, do something different, or,
Yeah, I think, I guess for me, and I would suspect I'm not the only one, I think maybe it's not coincidental that the interest in FKTs has grown as the ultra world has changed. And I think what's happened, and I think in some ways it's really good, there's so many more people out there running ultras now. And we always want to see more people enjoying the woods and getting fit and pushing themselves. But at the same time, it became more and more difficult to get into races. Races became more of a for-profit venture. Entry fees went up. And it just started feeling like, why should I pay $300 to do this race with all these other people and have to sign up for it 6 months in advance and do a lottery? And then if I get injured, I don't get my money back and yada, yada. When we have all these amazing trails and adventures to be had right here in our backyard. Absolutely. So, I think I'm probably not the only one with that line of thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I just had a podcast with Tori Greaves, who just set the new FKT on Pitchell. Mm-hmm. And that's one that you seem to have done quite a few times in both directions, as I remember it, because
actually I haven't.
Oh, no?
I have not done Pitchell. I just did the other direction. And that's another one of my bucket list, wish I had done. I tried to do it just last year and ended up right around where was I? Around Rattlesnakes, and maybe like 40 miles in or something like that. Had been having really bad chest pains for like 3 hours, and was getting ready to start on a section that was pretty inaccessible, and just thought, I don't know what's going on. I have really severe asthma. Didn't know if that was what was going on or what it was, but I had to abort that effort.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's one the one that got away, the one that I wish I had done when I was really strong and fast 5 or 10 years ago.
Sure. But you had done it from Mitchell to Pisgah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the only reason I did it that way was because of whatever time of year it was. I can't remember, but the hours I was concerned about whether I would be able to get into Mount Mitchell State Park before they closed. And get access to the top. And I didn't want to get up there and then have to walk back down the road to my cave. So that's why I did it the other way. Cause then I could, I could choose what time I went out, and then it didn't matter what time I finished.
As fate would have it, we passed each other. You were coming at me from Folk Art. I was out running just on the Mountains to Sea random training run. I'm like, hey, Ann, what's going on? She's like, I'm just doing Pitchell backwards, heading to Pisgah. Of course you are. It's a Tuesday. What else would you do?
That was a long time ago.
It was, yeah, but it's still vivid in my memory. But you've had some sponsors too through time, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the world of running companies has obviously completely changed with that of social media. Social media has made it more accessible. That companies provide opportunities for more runners. But when you and I were running as sponsored runners, it was a completely different game because social media didn't exist.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that? Like, what were some of your obligations as a sponsored athlete?
Yeah. Not a whole lot. I was sponsored by Saucony for a few years and then later by Innovate. And neither of them really required a whole lot, probably because they didn't provide a whole lot. I think I got free shoes, obviously. And then Saucony would pay bonuses for top 3 finishes in national championships. And so that was really all all the cash I ever got. I think my biggest year was maybe like $1,500 or something. And so they're really, really all you had to do was wear their shoes and their jerseys and, try to get your picture in a magazine or a newspaper if you could. But like you said, there were no, and I thought about that a lot, because I watch fair amount of YouTube or, read blogs and things and see all these runners doing all this. And I find myself asking, like, would I have done all that? Like if that was the expectation then, because I'm not somebody who tends to want to put myself out there a lot in terms of like filming videos of myself or so in some ways I would, I feel like I missed out because I think that people who are sponsored now probably get a lot more perks and a lot more opportunities to travel to cool places. I didn't get much of that really. But I also got to do whatever I wanted. Nobody was telling me you have to run this race or you have to put in this many appearances or anything like that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It was much simpler.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of tough to see social media because it feels like the message is more about the hashtag that it is about whatever was going on. Like I still like the images where it's just this is something beautiful I saw on my run, and it's not like hashtag blah blah blah. So I like all of my posts. I don't have hashtags. I do have some brands that that represent, but I still I'm not a hashtagger. So it's hard. It's hard to find that balance too, because I understand they're want to market and have their visibility, but at the same time, it just seems contrived. But let's we've kind of danced around your back. So let's talk about your back if you're okay with that. So when did that pop up and what happened?
Well, I've had periodic lower back pain for as long as I can remember. And, it's usually something that just flares up and goes away after a few days. But I think it was after the SB6K, a couple months, I came off of that and then just started racing again within a couple months. And it just started feeling worse and worse. And it was, I didn't know anything about back and disc problems then. So it manifested as, a lot of times it manifests as like either glute or piriformis or hamstring pain. So I kept getting treatment for those kinds of soft tissue injury kinds of things, and nothing was getting better. And this was over a period of, maybe a month or so. And then all of a sudden one night I woke up in the middle of the night and couldn't move. I got down I got down out of bed to stretch and couldn't move, couldn't get back up. And it turns out that I had herniated a disc. And so I had surgery. They told me, probably don't need to ever run again, or maybe if you do run, stick to 5Ks, that kind of thing. And it was really scary. And I was it was awful pain. I mean, I have new understanding or a sympathy for people who are in chronic pain because it was really debilitating every minute of every day. But of course, the surgery took care of the pain, and I was, woke up the next day and was great. And so I started walking, and I was in PT at the time. And I remember the physical therapist saying, you can't run, but you can walk as far as you want. And I went into the PT one Monday and she said, well, what'd you do? Did you walk this week? And I said, yeah, I did. Actually, they had this race called the Black Mountain Monster, which is a 24-hour race. I just did the 12-hour version. I didn't run. I just walked. I walked like 44 miles. She's like, I said you could walk as much as you wanted. I didn't really mean you could go out and walk for 44 hours.
Oh, that's great.
But of course, running can be kind of like an addiction. And I think a runner's mind kind of works like an addict's mind in that I started running again, and I could run 5 miles pain-free. And I thought, well, gosh, I should try to go out for 10-mile runs on the weekend. So then I could do 10 miles pain-free. Then, why not try 20? It'd be good just to do a 20-mile run every Saturday. So started doing that, then thinking, well, if I can run a 20-mile run, I could certainly do a 50K. And so then I just kind of got back into that whole thing. And I realized that running trails was harder on my back than roads. I think having the even surface was easier on it. And so I thought, well, I'll just run lots of miles on the roads. Why not do a 24-hour race? And that was when I got into the 24-hour races. And so I did like 3 or 4 of those. And then my back flared up again. I think what happened was I did too many. I think I did the Tour de Virginia in July. Then I did maybe like the World 100-mile championship or World 24-hour championship in September. Then I tried to do another 24-hour race in December. And after that, it was blown again. So I had another surgery. And I thought, I really need to be smarter this time. So I was for a while, and then then I ended up deciding to do some more fun stuff out on the trail, and did Scar and tried to do Pitchell, and then this was like a year ago, and it started flaring up again, and I've been paying the price since.
Oh.
Now I'm just getting back to where I can run every day. I'm at about 35 miles a week now, working towards but then again, I think, well, anybody sane would think 35 miles a week is perfectly fine. That's plenty to stay healthy, deal with your stress, blah, blah, blah. But I'm thinking, well, 50 miles a week would be a nice, round, better number to be hovering. And then as soon as I do that, I know I'll think like, well, there's no reason I can't try to go do 100-miler. So I don't know. I'm trying to learn. I mean, 1 back surgery can happen to anybody. 2 is kind of dumb, but 3 would be really idiotic. And I just don't want to go there. So yeah.
I hope you don't have to.
Yeah.
I hope you don't have to.
Yeah.
So you had a very nice progression in your in that you worked through, you got through the marathon, you built into the 40-miler, and then just started increasing from there. But something I want to touch on is these days we get a lot of youth into these ultra events.
Mm-hmm.
100 miles. It's we're seeing more and more younger,
Mm-hmm.
even younger than 18 that are jumping into these ultra events.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of advice for them?
I don't know. I don't know enough physiologically to know if there are long-term repercussions to that. People will say, oh, their knees will be shot by the time they're 40 or this or that. I mean, I don't really know the facts on that. And I don't necessarily believe that they're doing damage, muscular skeletal damage that will haunt them later in life. But what I will say is that I think if you have any goal of really competing or achieving big dreams at shorter distances, it's better to work on those while you're younger, because I feel like once you kind of get sucked into the whole trail ultra world and you start going more for longer and longer distances, it's pretty hard to rein everything back and come back and try to get a 10K PR or a marathon PR. So I think being cognizant of that. And I also, one of the things that I've always been really aware of since I got into ultras is the need to have balance in my life. And ultras can really take over everything. And I've known people who it's really become their whole life, and then something happens and they get a career-ending injury or just have to take downtime or whatever. And they don't know what to do with themselves. They don't have any other interests. They don't have any friends outside of the running community. They don't have any other kind of meaning to their life. And so I've always been a big proponent of finding meaning outside of running, whether it's other passions, whether it's your career, whether it's your family or friends. Have friends outside of running, because I've made some of the best friends in my life through running and racing and being on teams with them. But I will say those relationships change when you're not able to be out training together or racing together. I mean, they just do. So, my best friends in my life are people who are not necessarily runners, but they've been there. They were there before I was competitive. They were there when I was winning races, and they're still there now that I'm a casual jogger. And so I think just having a life outside of running and racing is so crucial. And I know a lot of people would disagree with that, but that's what's been important for me.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Switching topics slightly here, but at this point in time, we'd like to see our sport kind of get more diversity within it, not only racially, but seeing a stronger female presence. What can those that are already in the sport do to encourage further participation from everyone, and being part of the becoming a part of the community?
I think encouraging people who are interested to give it a try, really emphasizing that it is just, it sounds, when I did my first ultra, when I went to the first ultra, I fully expected everybody there was going to look like an Ironman or an Olympian. I thought everybody was going to be super ripped and super fit. And then you actually go to ultras and there are people of all ages, shapes, and sizes there. And it's really validating and empowering. And so I think to share that message to people who've maybe never been to one or never seen it, let them know that they really are there for everybody. And you're not going to go and feel like the only one who is not an Olympian. I think, I think that cost probably prohibits some people from competing in ultras. I worry that our sport is becoming kind of like triathlon did, where you had to be at least middle class to even afford to participate. So I understand race directors have to make a living, but maybe if they had some scholarship spots that people could apply for if they want to run the race and don't have the means to pay the entry fee. Or letting them work it off in volunteer. You volunteer for 3 of my races and you can run this one for free, that kind of thing. I love the different groups that are around now, like the Trail Sisters and, groups for women, groups for other kinds of, other people getting out there and just experiencing the trails with other people that can show you the ropes. It's important.
Yeah. Absolutely. That said, women, especially, we have a lot that become a little bit more timid about, getting on the trail specifically, and safety being a primary concern, for multiple reasons. Any advice that you would give to those women?
Some people might say I'm reckless, but I have never worried that much on the trails. I've actually had more scary incidents running in the roads around my house at 5 a.m. than I've ever had on the trails. And that's not to say there aren't dangers out there, but if I don't have, and I do 95% of my running by myself, if I don't have somebody to run with, I'm not going to let that keep me from going out on the trail. Yeah. I think just being smart, knowing your surroundings, being aware, if you pass somebody, especially somebody that looks like they could be a little sketchy, glance over your shoulder a few times to just make sure they're not back there still. Making sure somebody knows where you are and when you might be expected back. If you're real nervous, run with a dog or run with pepper spray, run it on trails that are more heavily populated at busier times of the day. And so I understand that we need to be safe and cautious, but I personally feel like I'm in just as much risk if I'm coming out of the Asheville Mall at 9:30 at night and my car is parked in a distant parking lot. I feel like that's just as risky as being out on the Mountains to Sea Trail by myself.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
all great points. Absolutely. Yeah. And as we kind of wrap up here, what do you have for parting words of wisdom for those that want to seek longevity in our sport?
I think mixing it up is really important. I think, I always made an effort to tried to run like a mixture of terrains and distances. So, even if my big key races for the year might be a couple of big, 50-mile trail races, I would still try to do some shorter races or some road races to mix it up. I think it makes you a more versatile runner if you're accustomed to different surfaces. Even throwing in a track meet every now and then can be fun. I think going to different places can really be fun, and mixing things up in terms of, trying SB6Ks or trying FKTs, getting all my acronyms mixed up, trying FKTs, trying new trails, listening to your body, taking rest days. I'm not as good at that. I never have been, but I think that probably helps with longevity. And just finding balance in your life again. One of the things that I've done over the last 5 years is I've done a lot of rock climbing. And then this year I actually took up supping also. And it's just fun to have some other things. I think it makes me appreciate my time on the trail even more when I don't do it every single day, when I'm mixing it up with other activities.
That's great.
So yeah, just try not to, I guess, like you would say about your stock portfolio, diversify.
Perfect. Well, Ed, that was a great conversation. I really appreciate your time and
it's fun.
Your contributions to our sport, of course. And for sure, I hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas and a happy holidays.
Thanks. You too. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Well, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Well, once again, I want to thank Ann for coming on today and sharing with us and talking about, a number of things. She's, like I said, just an amazing person. Honor and privilege to be able to speak with her. And so, thank you, Ann. Just on some things going on around here. I have some neck gaiters that I had printed with the MR Runningpains pain button logo. Those are $15. If you would like one, you can reach out to me. I'll post those on Facebook page, the MR Runningpains coaching page, if you're interested. It's the $15 just includes shipping. I'm just gonna throw them in an envelope with a stamp, so shipping will be super cheap. But if you're interested, just reach out. You can reach out through Facebook, email runningpains@gmail.com. I'll also probably post it on my MR Runningpains Instagram page, but just reach out if you're interested. Newsletter, my goodness, life has just been so busy trying to prepare for the holidays. I mean, we have one more episode before we reach Christmas, but man, I've just been so busy. I haven't had a chance to sit down and work on the newsletter, which, it's my hopes that I'll be able to get that out. May just do kind of a December/January newsletter, just with the craziness that, the holidays entail. My kids being off starting next week. So, but anyhow, I hope to get that out. My apologies. I know nobody's dying for that, but if you're interested in the newsletter, you can sign up for the newsletter on my webpage, mrrunningpains.com. And all of the old newsletters as well as podcasts are archived on that website as well. It's under the Connect page, so you click on that and you'll see links for the newsletter and podcasts, so you can listen to old episodes or read old newsletters. With that, information on my coaching is also available on there. I am getting pretty full. Also, should note that 2021, I am going to have a price increase to $125, just with all my offerings and such, and trying to make a living, obviously, from coaching. I'm going to increase my rate to people signing on after January 1st to $125, just as a heads up to anybody interested. I hope that doesn't dissuade you. I never want financially it to be a burden on anybody. So even if you're interested and that price may seem a little steep, just reach out. I'm happy to accommodate all people. Like I said, I never want coaching to be out of reach just because of pricing. So don't hesitate to reach out. But like I said, I am filling up, and I do have a number of people that have reached out to me about future coaching. So if that's something you're interested in the future, let me know. But as I said, price will increase after January 1. So hop on board if you're looking to do something for 2021, and you can get on now for the old rate of $100. Anyhow, other things that are going on. Next week, I'll have an interview with Jennifer and Nate Heaslip. They are locals to my area here in Western North Carolina. Obviously, a husband and wife combination. They have a son, Brendan, and we talk about how they fit everything in. That's always a question. That's such a great question. How do we fit things in with family life, work, etc.? So we're gonna have a great conversation. Jen finished the Rim to River 100 this year in a PR time, and is one of my athletes. Nate, her husband, just ran the Art Loeb Trail in a impressive time of 8:58. Under his own guidance. So we're going to talk about all that stuff. So I look forward to that conversation. That will be coming out next week, right before Christmas. So look forward to that. As for myself, currently, I've switched out of the hill drills. If you go back and listen, I talked about doing the Arthur Lydiard hill drills, the plyometric drills that Arthur Lydiard had for building the musculoskeletal system. And I've moved into more of an anaerobic or max VO2 phase, if you will. So I'm doing shorter intervals, hill repeats. As I record this here on December 16th, the day before the podcast comes out. This morning I ran 14 miles and then increased the incline on the treadmill to 10% and did some 30-second hill sprints. And you can see all this on Strava. Follow me on Strava. I'm Aaron Saft, MR Runningpains. And, if you want to ask questions, by all means, some of the stuff I do, if you want to know why I'm doing it, what I'm doing, or anything, that I post on there, anything about my gear or anything like that, feel free to reach out. I love connecting with people in that way. Always happy to share what I'm doing. May also intrigue you into, again, a conversation about coaching and how you can implement some of this stuff. And I'm also toying with the idea of doing individualized schedules. So in other words, a flat rate, and I'll write a plan for you if you're training for something specifically, a 12 or a 16-week plan. It would just be, coming up with an individualized plan based off of what you tell me. And then, I hand that off to you and you do your thing. It doesn't require any communication on your part. It's just a one-time fee. So looking at incorporating that as well. So check that out. It's you can find more information as I update my website. Should be updating that here in the next week or so. But like I said, let me know if you're interested in that. So far as racing goes, unfortunately, my son's season came to an end prematurely didn't get to run his conference meet due to severs, which is just a kind of separation, if you will, of the Achilles, pulling away from the heel. Due to his growth, he's growing so fast, and being athletic, it happens to kids at his age. We decided obviously to let him rest and let it heal, which is of course the best thing for him. And his team still won the conference title, which was most impressive. So happy for them. That said, we decided not to run the Pilot Mountain Goat. He was taking some time off, and I just didn't want to travel without him. It's a 3-hour trip for us, and with things going on, I just didn't feel it was the right thing to do. Next up on my schedule is the South Mountains 50K. That is January 9th, so that's coming up pretty quick. Again, assessing things, seeing how they go. I know Brandon Thrower at Tantalon Adventures has some COVID implementation of things, with wave starts and things at the aid stations and such. So definitely going to assess that, talk with my wife and feel it out, see how we think how safe it is. And I'm being real tentative, with going out and doing a lot of things right now. My wife, fortunately, is receiving the vaccine as a primary health provider. I do not get that, nor do my kids, but we're just being careful and cautious. So I hope all of you stay safe. Be careful, stay cautious. I'll be talking to you before Christmas, but I hope everybody's enjoying the holiday season. For those of you celebrating Hanukkah, a very happy Hanukkah to you. And until next time, my friends, keep running.